Hello, I think we're going to get started. Frankie is my guest speaker today. Can you hear me all right, Frankie? Do a mic check.
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the people in the audience that providing feedback so we can make this a very good experience for you. And Frankie, feel free to turn your camera off and when we do an introduction. So hi, everybody. Welcome to this keynote series of our scientific wellness program presented by GenoPalate. I'm your host, Dr. Yi Sherry Jiang. As some of you know, I'm the founder of this company and this platform where you have been a big supporters too. So really thank you for being here live with us. We have many of you joining us. I'm so happy, excited for today's session with you. This is an exclusive content, as I told you in my personal letter when I invited you to this series. It's a new series. We're super excited for us and for you. And this is only available to our members, so GenoPalate customers and loyal members. And our content is actually created specifically for you as the members of this community to answer your ongoing questions of, how do we be well and stay well in this life of changing environment, right? Wellness is so hard to keep up with. So we heard you from the past years of feedback, and so I'm really excited that we're doing this. We have a action and knowledge packed program. So let's dive in, shall we? We have some visuals. So let's put it up here. Let me know, please, that if you cannot see our presentation. Is it good? All right, perfect. So I will give you a little bit of overview so we know exactly what this whole wellness program is about and what's the plan and schedule for our next 3 to 4 series of wellness topic. And then the first one is something we all pay attention to is the weight management issue, right? So I think this is going to be a very relevant, engaging discussion. And just a little bit, is the screen big enough for you? What I can do is changing the display so some of you can see that better. Let me see whether that works. Yeah. Okay. So my calling, so to speak, in professional life is to create new knowledge, finding the truth in the same time, and then apply that knowledge to create new solutions for bettering people's health and wellness. That's what drives me get up every morning. And my day job is actually being the good mother for my son, which is on this picture. And I'm sure all of us want to take care of ourselves and at the same time take care of our family. So wellness is such an inclusive topic. And a little bit into the context of what we're talking about is obesity, weight issues. Some of you probably know my background in research was studying obesity genomics and metabolic syndrome genomics under Dr. Ahmed Kasiba, who is a renowned physician scientist who defined the metabolic syndrome definition for our society and a scientific community. So I studied under the really the biggest minds in the field of obesity, and some of us probably still remember these apple versus pear shapes that depicts different kind of, the apple shape is more detrimental for your metabolic health. And that's the apple versus pear shape that we grew up with is actually Ahmed Kasiba's theory. So I had a lot of fun studying under Ahmed's direction as a junior scientist, and later developed my independent study program at Medical College of Wisconsin. And I started to branch out to Mayo Clinic, Texas Biomed, and a Cleveland Clinic, where they have different kinds of capabilities and capacities to study whole genome sequencing-based data analytical associated with chronic diseases focused on metabolic syndrome. And then, I led my team and published our work in all sorts of impactful journals. And we focused on genomics at GenoPalate today, but tomorrow you're gonna hear more about epigenomics, and that's really the interaction between the genes and the environment as we know more from science. When we talk about weight, I think people talk about too much about calorie in, calorie out, right? That's really scratching the surface. And when we do that, the problem I have experienced as a person, as a scientist, is that we'll get a lot of frustration because it's really just treating the symptom. What the field is going to, which I want to bring to the table to you as insights and to drive, your daily wellness routine, is to really understand, and hopefully later we tackle with the priorities of this, the fundamental causality elements of causing the weight issues we experience. So the first one, which is on the top of our mind, is aging, right? When we grow older, our weight management changes, right? And I am sure all of you can attest to that in your own experience. And then in the month, we're going to talk about genetics, the genes underlying the weight issues, everything associated with. And genetics speaks to 30% of almost all the traits, human expressed. So how does that play a role in determining your success and failure when you're trying to deal with weight? Is going to be that the focus of the next seminar. And then in January, hopefully during the New Year, New You spirit, we'll talk about something really interesting, but also fundamentally important to energy management, weight management, is your biological clock. Right, we thrive and survived in this 2.5 million years of evolutionary, development. Our ancestry developed this way to sync our cells, our organs, our systems, our whole body to the sunrise and sundown. But now in the modern time, there's a lot of ways to unsync that. And then because of that, we cannot eat well, we cannot sleep well, we cannot perform as well, and so on. So I think we need to really dive into the circadian rhythm part of the clock to manage our timing right. And then the last webinar of this weight management series will be talking about stress. As you know, we are all dealing with a lot of changing stresses every day. It's super important, and if we want to really understand and tackle weight issue. Okay, let me just wanna check if. Let me know in the chat if there's a technical issue for hearing me. Okay. Well, I do want to say before we dive into the scientific insights and discussion and so on, is I believe health is a human right, and I believe in health. You can't buy health, right? You can only have it or not have it, and then you can regain it. We are equal. We're equal here. So when we talk about sensitive topics such as weight and stress, our feelings, our challenges, even I hope we're going to share cases and stories, it's very personal, and I understand dearly. But please be open-minded and put your scientist hat on, be objective driven, right? Let's inspire each other to succeed together on this journey and create this safe place so people can feel comfortable and free to share. And so if that helps, and bring your favorite cup of tea, coffee, or your favorite beverage, relax, have a quality hour with us. All I ask for you is to participate with an open mind. In that, I want to share the agenda, and I will get into the next point I want to get to. So I want to give you the overview, because it's important for you to understand what's going to be happening. We're going to first discuss our latest current opinions and review of scientific evidence for the relationship between aging and metabolism, and all the way to weight issues. And then I have a guest. You've probably already seen her earlier if you joined earlier, that I'm gonna have a virtual fireside talk with Frankie, who is a fabulous sports nutrition expert. And we're going to talk about, okay, based on the insights, what can we do? We're going to recap today's learnings just to help you memorize the takeaway messages. And if we have time, we'll give a few minutes for a more engaging Q&A. And in the meantime, if you want to jot down your notes, feel free to write it down on the Q&A side of the column. If you can find it, write in the chat box. It's totally fine. We'll go through that when we get there. And then we're going to talk about what's coming and what's next. Sounds good? So in the spirit of sharing, I just talk about please participate, and please feel free and safe to share. I'm going to ask you a question. So I'm going to pull up I'll pull up the poll with an interesting question, which I have it all the time, right? And so I hope you can see the question and the answers or the choices. The question is, how often have you tried to lose weight in the past? No right or wrong answers. Just share your honest experience. We'll give a minute for people to put in their answers. All right, I see the data still coming in. Thank you very much. We're going to have a pretty powerful survey here because we have enough people, enough data points. All right, I think it's stabilized almost. Okay, so I'm gonna, I think we'll leave it up, and this is a question, open question for us, not to seek the answer necessarily, but thank you for sharing. I believe you can see the results, right? So if just in case, we have 57 people saying, I'm always trying to lose weight, and I'm in that category. And there's 22% saying every few months, 6% once a year, 10% once in last 3 to 5 years. Good for you. 3% is every decade, and 0% say I've never tried. Okay. So as I shared, it's always on my mind. I always have that either 5 pounds or 10 pounds to lose, right? It's not necessarily always about, we have a big, obesity epidemic in this country. But beyond that, I think lots of us just want to be more vibrant, right? Losing that 5 pounds and 8 pounds just make me feel better. So I think we're definitely on the same page here. Now let's look at the problem. Problem is big. So if you're familiar with CDC, done a very thorough job, also longitudinally collecting data of all the states of our nation, and then survey the overweight, obesity in different age groups and different geolocation, and there's other nuances they will survey, and then this is all publicly available. So let's look at, they started to survey this in 1990. And when I started doing research, the map is very, very light in terms of lighter in this map is overweight. Also we'll get to the definition of BMI, as some of you probably very familiar with. Overweight is BMI 25 to 30. Obesity is 30 above, right? So this is the map of overweight about over a decade ago. And then as you see, different shades indicates the percentage of overweight in different locations. We notice that, middle range 34, 35% kind of affect the whole country. There's a few states, handful of them are 29% or 30 to 34. And then 10 years later, this is the latest they published so far. We can see all the color tones are darkened, and that means we have a more, moved to higher percentage of overweight throughout the country from states to states. When we started to survey this in mid 90s, no states is above 20%, right? So this is really eating up our country like as an infectious disease almost. So when we look at obesity, now this is on top of the overweight population. 10 years ago, this is the map. We have this concentration in the midland of our country to be more obese. And then in 2021, the same time, also noticing they actually shifted the color shades, so to probably accommodate more concentration of obesity in some states. It's also migrated towards more in adulthood. What about our next generation, right? I have a teenager boy. Our next generation's health is on top of my mind all the time. Knowing our obesity, this is the data I just showed, the obesity adolescents in the latest survey. We have several states have 20% or more of all the adolescents are obese. That's really concerning. What about children? This is 2 to 4 years old. I believe that's what they're serving here in 2020 data survey that, we can see from a shy of 10% to 20%. It's a problem, right? And we know it's a big problem, not only for health and also for your wealth, but let's focus on the health for a minute. Obesity and overweight associated symptoms are highly correlated with different degrees to acquired type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia, heart diseases, cancer risks. I also seen increasing evidence for dementia, Alzheimer's, hypertension has been long known, liver disease, and so on, right? So having the extra weight, excessive weight is not good for our health overall. And then it will become a chronic situation. Adolescents who are with overweight and obese have double the chance of transition into adulthood with that phenotype, with that clinical condition. So we really need to focus on prevention. And on the wealth side of the finance side of things, it's really breaking our bank here, right? So a little bit old, but this is well survey data. In 16, obesity medical care of adults only in our country, accumulated to $260 billion. And then for individuals who have a higher BMI in the overweight and obese range, the medical cost is going to be about $2,000 more per person compared to people with normal weight. And then the good news is, as you all know, that overweight obesity is potentially reversible, right? If depending on where you are in your health status, and also your medical history. But normally 95% of the obesity overweight we see in the general population are reversible. And then we know we don't have to necessarily lose all the unwanted weight if it's 30. I've seen the data that average American adults the weight they want to lose is 29 pounds, right? It sounds a lot, and I know that can be done, but we don't have to benefit from weight loss. We don't have to lose that much weight in order to benefit from weight loss. Simply lose, not easy, but losing 5 to 10% of your current body weight has shown to have a lot of benefits, including improvements in your lipids, your blood pressure, your glucose, insulin profile, inflammation, and sleep quality. So I think that's something we should all keep in mind. Now, talking about BMI, BMI stands for body mass index. It's a very capable tool to screen what kind of weight category you are in. It's actually a clinical tool for measuring your fatness versus lean mass. And if you ever want to recalculate this again, there's a lot of calculator online, but this is I listed here. There's two ways of doing that. On the left side, as I alluded before, we have normal weight is usually below from 20 to 25. Anything below 18 is underweight, and you should put your weight on your body versus losing it. And then from 25 to 30 is overweight, and then above 30 is obese based on BMI. But that only applies to 99% of us, except if you are a high-performing athlete, such as a lineman, linebacker, or any of the NFL players. So if they use a BMI, if their doctors, the NFL, football players, team doctors, if they use a BMI as a way to assess how fit they are, they're going to fail, because 97% of them going to be with a BMI that's qualified for overweight. 56, above 50 going to be obese, because they have massive muscles, depends on your position, and also massive amount of fat to have that weight for their job. And another also interesting phenomena related to this is my mentor was one of the first investigators introduced and invited to the very discreet community, sumo fighters, sumo wrestlers in Japan. It's a very interesting culture, and it's still very vivid today, where young teenagers, boys or young men, gonna have a very strict training regimen with nutrition, so that they will gain massive amount of fat, and at the same time they're highly fit wrestlers. So they usually are talking about 300, 350 pounds easily. And what happened is when Dr. Kosiba was studying these sumo wrestlers, what happened is they're completely metabolic healthy, when they were actively wrestling. But when they retire, when they're, kind of withdraw from the training mostly, and also kind of ease up on the nutrition, do whatever they want to eat and drink, and they turn out to be quickly become metabolic ill. So that's really, as a study subject in Amit's theory, is we really need to keep the balance of your metabolic organ tissue, such as muscles, skeletal muscles, and the liver in check in the same time to balance all these stimulations from the fatness. Another thing I wanted to discuss with you is we kind of talked about this before. Nothing in health is static, right? And our life changes, every day changes, our life courses changes, life events happened. I always think about our health as a river, in the river of health. When we treat the symptoms, almost like treat a boat fluctuating on the top of the river, such as weight, you never understand what's really driving it. So understanding aging, understanding and the other aspects we're going to talk about, stress and clock and so on, genes, are going to be helpful for our success. So with that, I'm going to ask you another interesting question related to this subject. If you can see the question, please provide your answer. So the question is, at which age did you start to notice it was more difficult to manage your weight than when you were younger? And let's see whether we have a pattern thanks to this study cohort we put together live. Choices are, I have never noticed difference. I notice in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. Okay. So we have some lot more to go over, and let me end the poll. And hopefully you can see the results together with me. It's very interesting. Actually, this is echo so much of the research has done in related to aging. It's actually exactly how I was experiencing that. I noticed in my late, like very close to 40s, all of a sudden I couldn't eat, anything as I wanted, like when I was 25, right? So that happens. And then some of, 10% of you and another 10% of you will notice that happen, or 10% of you notice that happen in 20s, and about 20% in 30s, in my case too, and 10% have never seen a difference. And then 50 and 60 have also 13% and 60%. It's very interesting, huh? So based on research, we know the men starts to gain weight, and then till about 55, he started to lose weight on average across the board. Women will start to gain weight from 30s and maybe earlier for some people, and until plateau, and then until 60, 65, and then started to lose weight. The reason we're losing weight, think about weight as mostly muscles, bone, and fat, is we're going to gain because our lifestyle as a whole, we gain a lot of fatness over this course naturally, and then we're going to lose bone mass and muscle mass later of the life. There's a nuances about, where we accumulate the fat also play a role here. Very recent, very exciting aging study have elucidated 12 hallmarks at genomic cellular level. These are, again, we're talking about the causal elements here. It's still quickly evolving, and it's a super interesting, very exciting time for aging study. We probably would dedicate a whole series on just aging itself if you're interested later. So this is a long list. What I want to draw your attention to and related to our energy control and weight management is this one. It's mitochondrial dysfunction, right? We know that aging has a great effect on the function, the volume, the quantity and the quality of your mitochondria in your cells. So that's the focus of the later part of my presentation. You probably all learn about this in your either high school or college, depends on your professions. But let me just give us a refresher. Mitochondria or mitochondria as a plural, generate all the ATP for us, everything, right? That's the energy powerhouse so that we can run on and survive. There are lots of them, obviously, because we need to make a lot of ATPs. It's talking about 1,000, 2,000 mitochondria in an active cell of yours. And then what we're going to see more results from some studies that the function we know, the function of your mitochondria going to decline over decades. And that's highly correlated with the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and function as well. This is a peek of the anatomy of your mitochondrion. And it's a double membrane organelle, right? Inside of your cells, they're tiny. We're so blow it up significantly here. And I want to draw your attention to probably two elements here. One is there's mitochondrial DNA. So we have a cellular DNA that's majority. There's 3.2 billion letters there. Copy from your mother, copy from your father. We're going to talk about that, obviously, in 4 weeks. But there are also mitochondrial DNA inside of your mitochondrion, and they make majority of the functional parts of so they make their own proteins and drive the mRNA signals and so on and so forth. But the cellular DNA will ship some cargo over because that's not enough to build everything they need to generate their energy. So cellular DNA, some certain genes will be produced there and then ship it over to make this organelle work for you. Very interesting, right? So another thing is structural. The cristae, which are almost like the protrusions, like your gut epithelial, they create more contact. So you have more ATP's generation surface inside of this very tiny organelle of yours. And then a little bit about the mitochondria and DNA. They have their own set versus the 3.2 billion or 3.3 billion from your cellular DNA. There are only 17,000 letters, but every letters matter. Obviously, they make their own protein and stuff. Babies, they will get their mitochondrial DNA 100% from their mothers. And that's a beautiful tool that genealogy and anthropology scientists have been using to build your, the migration tree or ancestry. So that's a very interesting tool for us. And then there's a theory about over 200,000 years ago, everybody came from Africa. A lot of the evidence to support that theory is actually derived from using mitochondrial DNA to map it out. And then there's something called mitochondrial Eve. I think that's the first person who is a mother that we all derived our mitochondrial DNA from. Another thing is people think there's a theory that we internalize bacteria to become our mitochondria. So this is actually where the host this energy powerhouse to make the ATPs for us. It's a theory because we cannot go back in time. But what really back this up is the similarity between the bacteria to our mitochondria is much, much more than our mitochondria or your mitochondrial DNA versus your cellular DNA, if that makes sense. All right, just quickly, this is our powerhouse for our energy source. If you remember from your high school, biology class, this electron transport chain system is really where the magic happens. The proton will pumped out of space, and the electron will pumped in, and then there's a chain reaction of enzymes that work together in almost like assembly line to continue the oxygen as acceptor to your electron will take the electron in, and then oxidation will happen. That's also the reason we need a lot of antioxidants, because that drives the oxidation happen and the aging of your membrane and cell later. But you need that, because without it, you cannot produce your ATP. One ADP will will be phosphorylated to become an ATP, and that's really all the reason we have our currency of our energy. So now I want to ask you a fun question for your learning purpose. And let me pull it up here. So the question is, based on what we just talked about and refreshed, how much ATP you think does an adult human that weighs about 170 pounds make each day? Just a range-wise, 7.5 grams, because it's very small molecules, right? Or is it 75? Or is it more? Okay, it's all right. Now it was like concentrated in one, and now everybody's coming in. I was surprised when I find out about this one. All right, let's review. The answer is actually 75 kilogram. Isn't that blew my mind? So what it is roughly, if you are 100 pounds person, you need to make enough ATP of your whole body weight in every day, in daily. Isn't that amazing? So I was like, I have so much respect for my mitochondria after I know this. It's a lot of ATPs my energy powerhouses have to make. It's just constantly working. So it's a recycling, right? So you take the glucose in, glucose have a way to be turned into the first ATP and go through this very, very long and complicated system. In short, it's, the ATP will continue to be phosphorylated to be the ATP, and ATP will come back to ADP. So it's a very smart recycling system, but you need something to kick that start, and then you need to maintain that over time. That's why, think about that. Even if we are a car, we need to really maintain this powerhouse as well, right? When it doesn't go well, there's 30 listed here. There are more nuances, diseases and symptoms that are shown, have evidence to be associated with dysfunction of mitochondria of yours. So we really need to pay more attention to this. I don't think it's being paid attention enough. So this is another interesting, very high impactful, very excellent study where they survey 24 years old versus over 70 years old, healthy, they exercise, individuals. I believe all of them are men here. As you can, I hope you can see, but I can talk over this. On the left side on this paper, on this picture is the lean and young muscle look like. we will see in the electronic micrograph that mitochondria are more concentrated. It's a little bit hard to see on this one. But when you see the lipids, the internal lipids inside the muscles, they're scattered. They're smaller, not so much brighter. So that means the lipid is not, highly weighted. And then also they're scattered, not so much concentrated. Versus in 70 years old, you'll see this more contact between the lipids and then the other part of the muscle tissues, very, very declined numbers of the mitochondria. And then you can see here depicting a cartoon where we have a lot of lipid droplets, both on top of the fibers of your muscles and also their muscles, or inside of between the bundles, right? So it's fairness of, I never actually understood until I reviewed the journals of this topic that, inside of our muscles, there's so much of the fatty acids and the lipids are located, and also they play a role in the signaling, right? When it's accumulating, it will signaling pretty much aging, and then it will accumulate all of internal cellular garbage that, eventually it's going to make our membrane age. And if you can see on the right side, the bar charts, the white is the young people's mitochondria counts, so quantities, stratified by the volume of the tissue, of course. And then compared to the old, we can see this about 70 years old muscles. We can see about 1/3 of the mitochondria quantities are retained in the older muscles. So I'm going to ask one curious question about this. Let me pull it up here. Okay, a curious question for your memory, for your learning is, what do you think, based on what we know, what do you think, which human organ has the highest average number of mitochondria in a cell, on average, of course, across the board? We have skeletal muscle, we have bone marrow, liver, heart, or brain. Give a second. All right. The right answer to this one, it does have a right answer, is it's a heart. It makes sense, right? So I thought it's muscle, skeletal muscle, but it's actually heart. And it's because the heart is it use a lot of forces to pump the blood for us, and it makes sense. They use a lot of energy and has more mitochondria needed. And the last piece of very important evidence and also conclusion I want to leave you with today in my part of the presentation is this. So this is a Mayo Clinic, very, very good study they made to the cover of PNAS journal, which is the official journal for the Academy of Sciences in our country. What they shown in a really beautiful study design that matched by health status, exercise level, and so on and so forth. What they focusing on is exactly talking about what is the pattern over aging of human mitochondrial function behaves. What they really found out is that every decade, we will decline for our mitochondrial function using skeletal muscle, in this case, by 8%. Every decade, we're going to decline by 8%. I also read about eventually going to plateau, not plateau, it's actually going to be at 1% decline over a year at an older age. So we really need to really pay attention to this course. To summarize my sharing today so far, we really need to understand the dynamics between the aging and the weight gain and loss, and then their impact on our metabolic health. This is going to help us to be less frustrated and more successful in terms of weight management when you understand and tackle that rightly. And then we share this very exciting aging new theory of 12 hallmarks at the cellular and molecular level. And one of the 12 hallmarks that we want to draw your attention to today is your mitochondrial function. And it's very important to keep our energy up and keep it healthy and young. And then as we just talked about, every decade we have a decline based on the evidence of mitochondrial function, and eventually going to be even accelerated at a later age. There are ways we have demonstrated we know if we can maintain our muscle mass, we have better chance of preventing, diabetes, because that's where glucose is being metabolized, insulin resistance, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. All right, so when I read all of these, understand all of these, my question is, what do I do? Can I do something? Can I eat something? Can I train my mitochondria to be healthier and just keep it up, right? So I'm very pleased to bring our expert, my guest speaker, Frankie O'Brien, here to shed some light on. Hi, Frankie.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks for the introduction.
Sure. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Very, very.
So please introduce yourself. And what I can say is you're just fabulous, registered dietitian. And some of our, me included, our customers really enjoying working with you on their nutrition journey. But you have so much more to offer, especially on this mitochondrial health and nutrition. So please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Too kind. Yeah, very interesting findings that you presented. Just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Frankie. I'm a dietitian here at GenoPalate. Just a little bit about my background. I did receive my master's degree in nutrition and dietetics from the University of Illinois at Chicago, where I also completed my dietetic internship. And then I'm also a certified specialist in sports dietetics and have worked mainly in the outpatient setting for most of my career. So I work a lot one-on-one with clients to help them achieve their goals in weight management, performance, and creating those sustainable lifestyle changes. And I do place a heavy focus on helping people navigate their relationship with food against misinformation in the media and really make those sustainable long-term changes to better their health and to meet their goals. So hopefully they feel empowered to make those informed decisions. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you all today about ways to put some of this into practice to achieve your goals, whether that be with weight management or just healthy aging.
Let me just ask you, because I'm super, intrigued myself, as I shared earlier, and I probably speak for lots of our audience today after we know the evidence and so on about mitochondrial function, muscular, decline and aging and weight. So my question, just to be practical for a minute, is always, number one, is there a way to train our muscles? We know there's certain ways to train that, and what's your understanding or insights about what kind of training will benefit our energy powerhouse, the mitochondrial health? That's one. Mm-hmm. The other one is just personally, when I do yoga, I fast for the morning until I do yoga, right? So empty stomach is good. But when I do training, which I'm training for muscular, or related exercise or routine, I need to eat something. I'm assuming, right? The question is, what's the timing? When do I eat so I get the best return on my investment? So if you can shed light on those, that would be helpful.
Sure. So it sounds like first question was like, what type of activity? And I know we had like put together a little poll, so I could skip ahead to that one because I'm just curious before I answer the question, what type of exercise you all are doing. So I think
let me
you can activate that. Great.
Yeah, I think this is your poll here.
Oh,
everybody saw it?
I think we skipped over this one, so it should be the next one.
Oh, okay.
You asked the question on activity. So I'm curious what type of activity
Gotcha.
people are doing. Perfect.
Let's go.
Yeah, the options are low impact cardio. So this could be like walking, maybe some light swimming or something that's not going to have a high impact on the body. High impact cardio would be like running or HIIT, more intense cardiovascular strength training. Could be lifting weights. We'll talk more about other options to resistance training, stretching, yoga, something light. And then maybe some of you do a mix of all of these or nothing at all. So let's see what type of things more people are participating in. Perfect. So it looks like a lot of people are doing a mix, which is great. Love to hear that. But to answer your questions, Sherry, in terms of maintaining muscle mass, building muscle mass, the resistance training or that strength training is going to be kind of that number one go-to exercise, but I do love to when people have a mix in there for other benefits. So I guess the reasoning behind that, though, one major component of the metabolism is going to be that resting metabolic rate. So this means that really the calories or energy that you're burning at rest, and the more muscle mass that you have, the more calories you're going to be burning at rest, which sounds great. You're just sitting there burning calories. But in order to do that, you do have to have that muscle mass on your body. And as you mentioned, and as many of us know, as we age, our muscle mass does decline. So by incorporating things like resistance training, that's one way that you can help maintain the muscle mass you have, build muscle mass, but also if you are losing fat mass, it does become even more important to hold on to that muscle mass. So strength training can look different for everyone a little bit. So it doesn't have to be your traditional lifting huge heavy weights at the gym, but anything that's going to provide resistance to the body is going to be a great option. So even like there are some good body weight exercises that use resistance. So think like push-ups and pull-ups, squats, things like that, or resistance bands. Even yoga is going to provide some resistance for the body, or free weights, objects around your house. And then, of course, there's more traditional things like your weight machines and cables. But those things are going to help, again, provide that resistance to help you hold on to that muscle mass, to help support your metabolism, and, of course, the mitochondria function.
That's very helpful. Plank is
plank's a good one. Yep.
Yeah, I like that better than doing weights.
Yeah.
But I need to do more weights now. I'm invested.
I guess too, now going into, you had a question also about fueling for exercise. So yes. This is something that is often overlooked. You know, some people will just do the workout, do the exercise, and kind of move on. But especially when we talk about maintaining muscle mass as we age, as our muscle starts to decrease, it is going to be definitely important. And one thing, I think, go ahead here, that many of us hear about the importance of protein when it comes to building muscle, but I think it's often overlooked for the process of aging. That really it does become even more important to get protein in the diet because of that. It is harder to hold on to muscle mass, like I said, but also the body starts to not be as responsive to lower amounts of protein. So it is going to be important to get in protein in the diet for that. Protein's going to be helpful for more than just maintaining muscle. It's helpful for many other things in the body, but since we're talking about the mitochondrial function in the muscle and strength, it's going to be main focus today. So one thing that I do want to point out is what was thought of as the anabolic window. I still get questions about this in terms of timing for protein for after working out. So it was once thought that you had to eat all like that protein right after in the 30-minute window of time after your workout. Research has now shown that it's really more important to focus on the protein you get throughout the day. So really just hitting those protein needs in general throughout the day, which kind of helps. You have a little less pressure. You can kind of find ways to get it in throughout the day and not have to so much hone in on that 30 minutes after. But we'll continue to talk about now maybe some snack and meal ideas. Would that be helpful?
Sorry, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, so when it comes to snacks before, we'll just call it working out, but it can be any sort of activity that you're doing here. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. What you choose to eat really will depend a lot on how much time you have before that activity. So the longer you have before your activity, the more complex the meal or snack can be. And this is because you have more of that time to digest, more time for your body to really, digest some of that food. So it's not going to sit there uncomfortable. So if you have 3-4+ hours before, you can just eat a regular meal. That's perfectly fine. So you can have anything that is going to have your protein, carbohydrates, and fats shouldn't be a problem. You have enough time to really digest that before. Now, once you get closer to the workout, this is where you want to start to simplify some of the things you're eating. So maybe focusing on your carbohydrates and a little protein. So some examples could be like Greek yogurt and fruit and a little granola. It could be a smoothie, a half of a turkey sandwich and some vegetables or hummus. But again, you're not going to want as much as you would a full meal. And I would suggest a little lighter on the fiber, focus more on some of those carbohydrates and some protein, a little less fat as well. Still can have some, but just a little less than you would a full meal.
I can definitely use all of these. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I would just want to mention one thing for if you have less than an hour before, that's when you're really going to want to simplify it. So like quick digesting carbohydrates. So a piece of fruit, applesauce, maybe a couple dates, something your body's you're just going to get that energy so that you can use it, but not cause too much upset. And then when we talk about some of the post-workout snacks, while I said that 30-minute time frame is not so important to focus on with protein, it's still helpful to get in something 45 minutes to 2 hours after. So something focused on protein and carbohydrates to replenish the muscles, replenish those glycogen stores, and help you with recovery for after.
Perfect. Now my question comes to, okay, so there is a way to train our muscle, improve our mitochondrial function associated with that. And then thank you for all these nutritional, very practical, meal planning tips, and I'm definitely using all of them. The other question is, how do we feed directly into our mitochondria, right? Knowing all these compartments and proteins and messengers and play a big role in making my whole body turnover literally for ATP every day. So they work so hard. How do I feed it? So we collaborated for this because it's so fascinating. It's just kind of a new insights, and there's a longer list, and to help us kind of put into a plan, we're simply suggesting you think about one nutrient a day to feed into your mitochondrial function, but you can also do that in a very different schedule. And we are against the time, and I do want to be sensitive to other people's schedule. So we'll probably pick top 3, would you say? So
Okay.
we can talk through just quickly what they are, why they're important, and for the mitochondrial health, and what are the foods like rich in them. So, I was probably skip a very important nutrient of the vitamin B family, because all vitamin B family members, as far as I know, have played a role in mitochondrial health and function. And folate is something that we all pay attention to from pregnancy to later life. So I think people familiar with that. And then again, we will share all these insights after the call. Let's talk about vitamin E. Vitamin E is interesting. That's one of the most important antioxidants for our cells, right? The nutrient. And then we know actually that it's a lipid soluble, as you know, and it keeps our cell membranes intact and fluid, which is important for its jobs. We have evidence showing disturbed vitamin E, when it's oxidized inside of the cell, it actually interferes with the function and activities of the complexes 1, 2, 3, which is, if you remember that picture we just showed, it's important to make the ATP production. So it's important, as we know. So can you just tell us, Frankie, where can we find vitamin E food? And do we need to supplement in terms of the recommended intake for men and women?
Great question. Vitamin E is primarily found in nuts, seeds, and then many vegetable oils. Most of the time, people don't necessarily need to supplement with it on its own. It's helpful if you just maybe take a multivitamin, it's going to be in there, but you should be able to get what you need from your nuts and seeds and, like I said, vegetable oils.
Okay, I like those foods. That's awesome. And let's take another one, zinc, which is a trace element, right? A mineral, and evidence have shown it's very important for biogenesis of mitochondria. And if we have deficiency in the right place and right time, and we're going to have impaired mitochondrial biogenesis. So obviously it's very important to keep making our mitochondria. What foods, and same questions, where we can get the good quality and amount of zinc from?
Yeah. Well, if you want to get a lot of your zinc in at once, oysters are a great option. But if you don't like those, zinc is in a lot of seafood, meat, and pumpkin seeds. So kind of a lot of options there. As far as supplementation, kind of same answer there. If it's a part of your multivitamin, great. I would pay more attention to it if you don't eat meat or seafood. Then I would look into supplementing. But if you eat plenty of fish and seafood or oysters, you should be fine.
I love oysters, but I know some of my friends.
I know about every day.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's take another one, taurine. And this is a kind of a novel one for me. I never actually know too much about it until we study it here. It's actually good for mitochondrial protein translation. This is from the DNA mRNA to make protein, make things work. Obviously, it's actually also shown to be a pH buffer in the matrix of the mitochondria, because it's very important to keep it very, very narrow for the pH for all the reactions to happen. Obviously, we want to keep a good level of taurine in our system. Now, taurine, again, it's a new thing for me. Maybe some of you know. Where do we find that in food?
That one's also going to be found in more animal products like meat, seafood, and dairy. And interestingly, it's also in like energy drinks a lot of times. I don't know as much about, I wouldn't recommend that to get your taurine in. I don't know as much about that, but I just think that's an interesting fact there.
I read one time it's in high concentrates of taurine is in actually Turkey. Now our Thanksgiving is around the corner.
Oh, perfect. Mm-hmm.
This will be a good reminder for people and motivation to eat your delicious turkey.
Yeah. Protein, right? And taurine, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Frankie, for all the insights. And would you be so kind to share the full list of this and also the exercise routine with our
Absolutely.
customers?
Thanks for
Perfect.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a super busy, it looks like a New York subway map, right? So this is actually if you can recognize in the middle is the electron transfer chain we talked about and shown before. What is different is all these color banners are the nutrients that benefit or functions. If it's deficient, it's going to be impairing its function. So we're going to share this whole picture. You can so you can examine that later because there's a lot of good information here. But we also will share information about the foods and where can you find them later too. So to kind of hone in everything we're just talking together, this picture cartoon really demonstrate it's important to keep our healthy aging, so to speak, our muscles, our mitochondria, and reduce our oxidative stress in the cells. This is different from the stress to our mentality, so to speak. And the 3-4 things has been shown to be able to reverse this process. One is exercise. So we train our muscle, train our mitochondria, bring the volume up, bring the functionality up. CR stands for caloric restriction. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with, intermittent fasting. We'll dedicate some time to talk about this because it's very important for its relationship to energy system and also aging. CR mimics is also shown to have a role, and then antioxidants. We just talk about one, vitamin E, and there's a multiple antioxidants. Also zinc is an antioxidant. It's going to be very helpful. So feeding and training for your mitochondrial function is hopefully what we call out for you to take away. And what have we learned today? Aging has a very strong effect on your body energy metabolism. We need to understand it to be less frustrated and more successful when it comes to weight issue. And mitochondrial health is key to delaying metabolic aging, and especially for muscles. And we hopefully after this you would consider to implement a regular strength training routine for growing the quantity and the quality of your mitochondria. And then there's a nutrition routine that we also can help you implement for feeding your mitochondria. All right, and I think with a few minutes over the hour, but we have very interesting comments and some great questions. We can just go over a few of them, but we will follow up with you potentially. If not next time, we definitely will try to address your question. One, it's a curious question, a curious comment. I really love it. I think Monica shared that her strength endurance training is riding on her horse. I really love that way of training. And then we have a good question from Anne. She said, I would love to know your opinion on the GLP-1, the obesity medication, and the impact that has or doesn't have on mitochondria. And this is a very great question. I think what we'll do, because GLP-1 is a big topic, and I think lots of people will be very interested in knowing the details from how it works and how does it work for people in different situations, and how diet and training can play a role. So we will dedicate a session for that, but I will take a note to make sure we cover your good question there. And Judy shared that when we talk about the 5 to 10% reduction in your weight has a very good impact on all sorts of metabolic health. And she said 5% does make a difference. I'm a proof of that. Thank you for that comment. All right, excellent. Thank you for your engagement. There's a lot of good comments, and in the with in the sensitivity to your schedule today, what we want to provide you more just beyond the discussion, which is fantastic. And number one is we're gonna so in the following week or so, please watch out in your email of the following assets. We're gonna either send you at different times or at once. We'll have to decide it after the call. First, you're gonna have the recap of today's seminar with a recording of the whole program, and then we're gonna send you the strength resistance training guide for your mitochondrial function. And then we're going to share a full list of nutrients and foods for feeding your mitochondria as we suggested. And the fourth one is something for you to hopefully help you to memorize what we learned today. Usually when you talk about something, when you teach, you actually, help you to learn the new information. So we want to provide something, a one-pager with the fun facts we reviewed today, like, the loads of ATP you have to make daily, things like that. So you can be the smartest person in the room about mitochondria function. And it will be a talking points for hopefully your Thanksgiving party. And tell other people it's important. And that concludes today's program. Thank you very much for your participation. And upcoming, as you know, every month we're gonna gather together, spend a quality live hour together, just as we did. And the next time we're gonna talk about genes. I know there's a question about the genetics and the nutrition diets, and we'll definitely cover that as well. And thank you, and I want to thank my guest speaker together, but thank you for spending an hour, a little bit more of your life with me. You can never buy health, you can never buy time. So I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it truly. And write to me if you have comments and afterthoughts and suggestions for making this more useful for you. That's the whole point. Write to me at bewell@genopalate.com. And that will conclude today's program. And thank you for joining. I'm Dr. Yi Sherry Jiang. This is GenoPalate, and see you next time. Be well. See you next time. Be well.